Okay, let's try this again. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of technical difficulties with our camera, so I think we should be good to go. If you can't hear me, leave me a comment, but hopefully we are good and we've got that all figured out. So, okay. If I've learned anything over 15 years of homeschooling, it's this. You can make great plans, but you got to be flexible because a lot of times life happens. And so tonight is just another example of being flexible. I hope you guys have your printable. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Yay! Okay, I'm glad that I can be heard. So I think we're good. Sound is working, video is working, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I made you guys a printable because I really want you to have something in your hands that you can engage with as we're going. I have a statistic for you as a teacher. The reason why it's important to take notes or to have something in your hands is because you remember 10% of what you read, 20% of what you hear, 30% of what you see, 50% of what you see and hear, 70% of what you say, and 90% of what you do. So some people call this active listening or being engaged with the material. And so you should have your packet. I have mine. I actually filled mine out too because this is a really important exercise and it's actually something that I do every year. So we're going to go ahead and just get started with the why. So as I'm talking, you can follow along in your notes. Some of them are like fill in the blank stuff and some is homework for later. So these things in the beginning that we're going to be talking about, I want you just to listen and you can make notes, but I really want you to spend some time on these things on your own. So don't try to fill it in right now because this is an exercise that you really need to think about and take time to do for your family. So why homeschool? I know a lot of you have been thrust into this. It's not something that you wanted to do or thought you would ever do, but because of the current situation, you're looking for other options and you're saying, well, I have to do this. I have no other choice. I want to challenge you in that to look beyond the academics and ask the questions, why are we doing this? What are you hoping to get out of this year with your kids? Homeschooling is so much more than academics. It's academics, obviously. Obviously, you're going to teach the subjects that need to be taught. And we'll get into the law later about what is required in Missouri. But there's more to it than that. Homeschooling is so much more. It's about building family relationships. It's about teaching your kids to have good character. It's about teaching them to have a work ethic. Things that are important in your family. You now get the opportunity when your kids are at home and you're the teacher to teach them the things that you think are most important for them to know so that they can be prepared for life. You know your kids better than anyone. You know their strengths and their weaknesses. You know what they like and dislike. You know who their best friends are, who they don't get along with, even what their favorite foods are. You know your kids better than any teacher knows them. And so you are uniquely equipped to be able to teach them in a way that nobody else can teach them. So what is your why? It's so important to have a why that extends beyond academics. And so I really want you to spend some time thinking about that. The next thing after you've thought about that is to make a family mission and vision statement. Now businesses do this, and it's really helpful and important as a business for everyone in the organization to know why they do what they do. It's a standard thing that a lot of businesses do. I think this is really helpful to do for a homeschool setting as well. So this is something that I have developed over the years for our family. And I gave you mine as an example, but your mission statement should be really short. It should be clear and to the point. It should be no more than 2 sentences. Mine is, in our homeschool, we are raising lifelong learners who will be kind to others and who will live their life with integrity. Those are the things that are important to me for what I want to teach my kids. Obviously, academics is part of that, but it's so much bigger than that. So as you begin your homeschool year, I want you to start by looking at the bigger picture. It goes beyond just what you do this year with your school books. There's so much more to it than that. So think about all the things that you want your kids to learn aside from academics or in addition to academics. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is why you're going to need to do that. Why do you need to have a mission statement? Well, I am not really great at sugarcoating anything. So I'm going to be super honest with you guys. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be a cakewalk. Every day, sometimes I post pictures of like, we went to the park and did our science lesson and it was fabulous and the weather was perfect and the kids all got along and the birds were singing and we took pictures of butterflies. Every day is not like that. There are a lot of hard days. On those days, I look back at my mission statement and my family verse that we'll talk about in a minute, and I need to remind myself, okay, why am I doing this every day? So it's really important to have that. That's a foundational thing that you need to have, and that's why I wanted to start there. I know that's not a super like scheduling or curriculum kind of practical thing, but it's so foundational that I didn't want to skip it. So the next thing that you need to be doing is asking God to give you a verse. Now, this is a specific thing that every year I ask God, what is the verse for our family for this year? And I usually do this late July, early August, before school begins. And I've been shocked and amazed to discover how well the verse that the Lord shows me early on in the year fits with what happens during the course of the year. So I want to show you our verse from last year. This is our verse from this last school year. So I haven't done one for this school year yet. I'm still working on it. But this is the verse that God gave me for the 2019-2020 school year. And it says, "Be glad, people of Zion. Rejoice in the Lord your God, for he has given you the autumn rains because he is faithful." Joel 2:23. And the theme that I wanted us to focus on, I kind of extended this into a theme and said, we can have joy in God's faithfulness and trust that he is a good leader. Now, that might not seem like a schooly sort of verse, but considering the school year that we've just had, being able to trust that God is a good leader and that he is faithful even in challenging times was a very useful and foundational verse for us. So I post this in my schoolroom. It's something that I want to have visible. And at the beginning of the school year, we talk to the kids about it. We go over it and say, this is our school verse for the year. And this is what this is what God is kind of showing us is the theme that we're going to focus on for this year. It's really important. So don't skip that. But that's homework, so don't do it now either. So as the teacher that I am, I'm going to give you guys homework. That is a really important homework assignment. So take some time on it. Don't rush it, and really just seek the Lord in your quiet times the next few weeks as you're preparing for school to begin, and ask him to show you what is the verse for your family for this school year that you guys are going to need. That's your foundation. That's what you set everything else upon. So we are going to move on to the next segment about how to homeschool, the how. So how do we do this? I talked a little bit about the hard days, and so I want to start there so that you have some things to fall back on, so that you have kind of some people might call this like a safety belt, or something that you can fall back on when you're having a hard day that's easy to turn to. So on your worksheet, you'll see where it says find peace, and I have a little acronym for you. So I spelled this out to mean the word peace because I felt like that was a really significant word and a great kind of thought to have when you're having a hard day, like I need to find my peace. So peace, P is for pray. So you can go ahead and write that down on your sheet. When you're having a hard day, the first thing that you should do is pray. The first thing that I do when I'm having a hard day is I pray. I ask God, give me creative ideas. Like, this is a specific ask that I ask of God when I'm having a hard day with my kids. The curriculum is not working. They're not understanding. They're just having a difficult time paying attention, or whatever the case may be. My specific ask is, God, give me creative ideas for how to teach this specific thing to this specific child. The E is actually seek encouragement. So you can write encouragement and seek out to the side. So seek encouragement. I have given you some resources at the end of your packet of a few homeschooling mamas that I follow on Facebook, and who I also just go to their websites. They have blogs and other information that is really helpful for encouraging in the hard times. They just have advice and wisdom and sometimes ideas that I haven't tried. So that's just two options for you. There's a ton of others out there. And so I would just say, find somebody that you can be encouraged by and follow them. Go to their blog and read it. Even if it's just a friend that has homeschooled for longer than you and you are needing encouragement, seek out those people that will be encouragers. And part of the reason why I asked a lot of you guys to friend me is because I want to be able to be that for especially you guys that are new to homeschooling. I've been doing this for 15 years and I know how hard it can be. And I know that it can be lonely and you can feel sometimes isolated. And so feel free to reach out to me if you are having a hard day and need encouragement. Send me a message and I'll pray for you. Even if I don't respond right away, I will be praying for you and we can chat and I can give you wisdom and advice if you need it, or just be a friend to give you a smile and tell you it's going to be okay. So A is ask for help. You don't have to do it all on your own. You can seek outside help. If you have a child that's struggling, find a tutor. Ask a family member to take a subject that you cannot teach well, or that you don't feel that you're strong in. The library is a great resource. There are tons of ways that you can get support in your homeschooling journey. You don't have to do it all by yourself. C is for call a friend. If you have a friend that homeschools, or even a friend that doesn't, and you just have a friend that is your encourager, your prayer warrior that you can call a friend. And then E is evaluate what is working and what isn't. So sometimes you just have made a schedule and you think it's going to be great and it's not working. Like tonight with our camera issue. We did a trial run of this earlier this week and everything worked perfect. It was great. And then tonight the camera decided it didn't want to cooperate. So, sometimes you can plan the best plans and they don't always work. So sometimes you got to just evaluate, okay, what's working, what's not, change it as needed, be flexible. So that brings us to, what if your curriculum is not working? That's your next kind of bullet point in your packet. So this has happened to me several times. It's really frustrating because you do a lot of research picking curriculums. I spend most of the summer researching curriculums. Almost every summer, I'll spend a good chunk of the summer researching. What am I going to do next year? What worked last year? Where are we going to go this year? What do my kids need to focus on? What are their learning styles? And you go through all the things, and there's tons of options for curriculum. I'm not actually going to get into any of that tonight because it's just so much. It could be a video all by itself. So we're not really going to get into the nitty-gritty of different types of curriculum. I might do that on a later video. But for tonight, sometimes curriculum, you think it's going to be great, and then you get into it and it's not, or it's just not working for your child. So there are 3 things that I always do if a curriculum is not working. The first one is probably the hardest, but I have done this. Sometimes there's just no remedying the situation, and you just got to scrap it. Like, sorry, curriculum, you're done. We're going to pick something else. We've had to do that a few times. I usually try to make it at least a whole semester before I do that. And you really want to give it a few weeks before you decide to get rid of it anyway, because sometimes there's just an adjustment period. But if it's really not working and you've done the other 2 things that I'm going to talk about, it's time to just chuck it and get something else. And that's okay. You're not chained to your curriculum. I know that it's an expense, and sometimes it really hurts to have to throw it out or sell it and try something new. But it's totally worth it. If it's not working for your family, or it's just causing your kids frustration and they're not learning, it's not worth it to keep it around. So the other option is, before you just throw in the towel and say, nope, we're going to try something else, you can keep using it, but alter the assignment to better fit your needs. I would try this first. Remember, you're the teacher. The curriculum works for you. It's a guide, and you can decide if you need to change an assignment or if you need to alter how it should be done. Or there's been assignments that I'm like, we're not going to do that one at all. We're just going to skip that assignment. Because sometimes it can be better done a different way. We can do it hands-on, or we can do it orally. If it's just causing my kids frustration, there are ways to change and alter assignments, and as the teacher, you have the authority to do that. And the third option is pick and choose. Sometimes there's parts of a curriculum that work really, really great. They're great for your kid, and they're working really well. And so you want to keep those, but then toss what's not working. So you don't have to keep the whole curriculum. You can pick and choose. There's no rule that says you must follow this exact schedule and do the curriculum exactly how it's written. For example, something that I did last year with one of my kids is I kind of meshed two curriculums together. I had a traditional textbook style curriculum that I had loved for my other kids for English, and really wanted to use it because it's great for teaching how to write and the writing process and writing papers and a research paper and all the things that I wanted him to do. He is not a writer. He doesn't like writing. He's a boy. And so I knew having him do a curriculum all year that was going to be hyper-focused on writing and have so much writing involved would not be a good fit for him. It would cause frustration, and he would end up hating school even more than he already does. And so I meshed that with another curriculum that I had also used previously with another one of my children. That was more of a literature-based curriculum. And so I took pieces from this one and from this one and combined them together so that he was getting all the things that he needed to get, but he was getting them in a format that worked for him. So you can totally do that. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, if you guys have questions, I forgot to mention, you can just leave them in the comments. I'm going to go fast, and so I know I'll miss things, but if you have a question, put it in the comments, and if there's time at the end, we'll do a Q&A and I'll answer some of them. So the next thing is writing in pencil. So I said on your notes, why is it important to use pencil when writing out your plans? Normally I write everything in pen. I don't like pencils, but you better believe my plan book is all in pencil. So here are the two reasons why. Number one, it's psychological. When I write things in pencil, psychologically I'm saying, this is my plan. This is like, if everything goes perfectly, how this is going to go. I've just written up my lesson plans for not even all my kids yet, a couple of my kids for the first week of school. And my plan book is really, really full. And so I know already, I'm like thinking to myself, some of these are not going to go how I think they're going to go because I'm just cramming in a lot more than I think we'll be able to cover. But that's okay. It's better to have more planned and not need it than less and find yourself with kids that don't know what to do. So psychologically, when it's in pencil, what I'm saying is this is my plan, but it's okay if we have to change it. Okay, so I can be flexible. Also, it makes it easier down the road if I've written out my whole month of lesson plans and I've planned out, lesson 1 of math and 2 and 3 and 4, and I've got them all written out. Well, if we don't get that far, then now I can go and easily just erase and reschedule it. If it's in pen, you can't really do that. So, secondly, you're going to have to change your plans. So just prepare for it. Write them in pencil. So number 1 was it's psychological. A pencil says it's okay to change it. And number 2 says you're probably going to have to change it. So pencil is just the best way to go. So write your plans in pencil. Okay. Before we get to scheduling, how are we doing on time? Good on time? Okay. we're going to move over to scheduling. So the important thing to remember with scheduling is that you don't have to follow anybody else's schedule, okay? You're the teacher, it's your school. You don't have to follow what the public school does as far as their schedule for when they start or when they end or when they have breaks. You get to set your schedule. In fact, one of the best parts of homeschooling that I've enjoyed as a homeschool mom all these years is that I purposely plan breaks when the public school is not on break. And there's a reason for that. I like going places that are not crowded. So if we're going to go to the zoo or a museum or something, and I want to go when we're on spring break, I want to go when everybody else is not on spring break. So that's a kind of a bonus to homeschooling. You get to make the breaks when you want them to be. Another fun thing in our family, December is kind of a crazy month. We have several birthdays, we have the holidays, we have family stuff. And so we are able to structure our plans so that December can be kind of a lighter month and we can take some more time off to just have family time. And I work in school stuff as we're doing things. The kids don't know it. It's kind of secret, you know. Baking cookies is a school activity. They have to read a recipe. They have to follow the measurements. So they are learning. It's just a little bit of a non-traditional style of learning. Okay, so moving on to scheduling. Just be ready to be flexible with your scheduling. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, sandwiching. So at the top of your page, I should have numbered, I think this is page 4. Yeah, top of page 4, we're going to talk about sandwiching. Okay, so as you prepare to write your schedule and figure out what when you're going to do each subject, I want you to think of a sandwich. In a sandwich, you've got usually bun, meat, cheese, like the fillings, and then another bun. For schooling, what that looks like is you're going to put easy subject, hard subject, easy subject. Do not try to put 2 hard subjects back to back if you can avoid it. Sometimes it's not avoidable, but try to avoid that as much as possible. It's going to make more frustration for your child. They need a break in between the hard subjects if at all possible. So for an elementary school child, what this might look like is starting with math and then do a read aloud. They don't have to do a whole lot. You're reading to them. They have to listen, and it's enjoyable, and they're still learning, but their brain is able to have a little bit of a brain break. And then take a break. Take breaks. Go play outside. Let your younger kids have a free time to play inside. It doesn't need to be super long, but breaks are really important. I think the temptation as a mom, and I deal with this a lot, is you want to just sit down and get it all done. Okay, I'm a type A personality. I have my list. I just want to sit down. Let's just work it and get done. That's not the best plan for young kids. You'll have a much more successful school day if you allow them to have breaks throughout the day. It might make your day stretch out a little bit longer, but it will be a much more enjoyable day. So take a break, come back. So in my example, we would take a break, and then we'd come back and do history, which for my kids is a fairly easy subject. And then we would take lunch, and then reading lessons, and then a quiet time, and then a science lesson. So in general, what you want to do is you want to plan your subjects so that whatever is hardest for your child is not back to back with another hard subject. Let them have a break in between. I call it a brain break. And I've found that that just is a lot better for the kids. They do better on their classes, they get less frustrated, and the day just goes smoother. So sandwiching and scheduling is, think of a sandwich. Don't put your hard classes together. Try to space them out with easier things in between, and make sure that you schedule in breaks. If you don't schedule in a break, you're less likely to take one. So just as you're mentally preparing, know that breaks are going to be important, and they're going to be part of your schedule because they will help. Okay, so Again, you've got a couple of homework assignments on this page. I want you to think about what your child's most challenging subject is and what their easiest or most enjoyable subject is. And so you want to do what's most challenging for your kids first thing in the day, because they are fresh, they're awake, they're not tired by all the other things that they've done that day. It's the best time to get their hardest subject. And for my kids, that's math. So generally, math is the first thing that we do in the morning. For my kids, their easiest or most enjoyable subject is science. So science can also be messy, and sometimes it takes longer than you think it's going to take, especially if you're doing a project or an experiment. So I like to save that one for the last subject of the day. That way, if there is a mess, I'm not having to rush to clean it up so that we can get on to our next subject. It can be a little bit more relaxed and less stressful for me as the teacher to do that one last. Okay. Moving on. Okay, Cassandra asks, are there ever days that everyone is having a rough day and you decide it's better off to stop for the day and pick up tomorrow? Yes. If so, when do you realize that it's one of those days? So what I usually do first is I will try to salvage the day if at all possible. So sometimes what happens is we're just plugging away and I'm doing great and I think like, oh, this is great, everything's going fine. The kids are starting to get hungry and they're starting to get tired and I'm not really paying attention to their cues. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll just have to stop and do, well, what time is it? Do we need to stop and have a snack? So usually I do that first. We'll stop, we'll have a snack, I'll let them, rest. Maybe we'll do a read aloud, but sometimes nothing really works. They're just not having it. They're not in the right frame of mind to be able to focus for whatever reason. And so, yeah, I do sometimes just say, okay, we're done for the day. And, my kids are older, so it's a little bit different with younger kids. With my kids being my upper elementary kids, what I'll usually tell them is, if you don't finish it today, you have to do it tomorrow. So you don't just get a pass. They don't get to just skip the assignment or skip the lesson. It just gets pushed to tomorrow. And the funny thing is, when it gets to the end of the year and they can kind of see like the end is in sight and it's spring and they want to go outside and play, this happens a lot in the spring. Honestly, these kinds of days happen much more frequently for us in the spring, near the end of the school year. It's nice outside, they just want to go out and play. But they can also see the end of their workbooks or the end of their lessons is near. And so what I'll tell them is, listen, you can stop for today if you want, but if you don't finish it today, it just gets pushed to tomorrow. And so the more you wait, the more that's going to cut into your summer vacation. So one of my kids, I was like, you know what, whatever, like if you don't want to do it today, fine, but you're going to be doing math until the end of June if you don't buckle down and do it. So the older kids, I kind of give them a little bit of a feeling of control over that and let them choose. And usually they choose to do it because they don't want to do it over the summer. They want to get it done. And so they'll buckle down. But sometimes the younger kids, they just are not in the mood to do school, and that's okay. I'll try to get in as much as I can. And if everyone is just not cooperating, we'll just say, okay, that's the end for today. We're done for today. Or, we might just do something that is still school, but it's not book learning. So I've been known to, sometimes they just need to get out and move. So we'll call it like a PE day, and we'll go out and go to the park or go for a walk or something, just so that they can get out and get movement in. And a lot of times once they've had that opportunity, we can come back and refocus or maybe salvage a lesson or two. But yeah, totally okay. Suggestions for 15-month-olds or younger siblings. Okay, so the best suggestion that I can give you for your younger kiddos is give them time first thing in the morning, if possible. So the best thing that you can do with a preschooler or like a kindergartner that is going to need less school time from you than an older child is to give them your full attention first thing in the morning. Let them get their love bank filled with time with you, and then they'll be less likely to be a distraction later. With the 15-month-old, I've always tried to do the bulk of my schooling with my bigger kids during nap time. My kids have always taken an afternoon nap, and the rule in my house is if you are not in kindergarten, you still take an afternoon resting time. So even my 4-year-old, who's going to be doing preschool this year, she will take an afternoon resting time because she needs it, because kids that age still need a time to just kind of decompress from the morning and have that time of just quiet. So she won't nap, but she will go to her room and she will read a book or do a puzzle or some sort of quiet activity. I've also had success with school toys. So school toys are special toys for the younger kids that are put away and only come out when I'm doing school with my bigger kids. They stay in the schoolroom, and basically they have to stay in the schoolroom. I have a rug in my schoolroom, and so my little kids, if I pull out a school toy for them, they know that cannot leave the room. They have to stay in the room and play with their school toy on the rug. So I hope that helps with that question, Casey. Okay. This is good. All right. So that's all I have on scheduling. If you guys have other questions about that, you can feel free to send me a message after this video and we can talk more about specifics of how I've done different things with scheduling. We are going to talk, oh good, I'm good on time. Okay, we're going to talk about the law in Missouri. Oh, I gave you a place in your packet to write up a schedule. Now, you might want to do like an hour by hour schedule that's more specific. This is not that. This is more just kind of write out all the things that you need to cover in a day and put them in whatever order you think would be best, and use pencil. A lot of times I'll write out a schedule and I'll think while I'm writing it, this is great. And then I'll go back and look at it and realize I cannot put those two subjects together, or we're going to need a break after that subject. And so your pencil is your friend, and then you can erase and change things and move it around. But this is just a big open place for you to kind of play with where you might want to put things. Okay, let's talk about the law in Missouri regarding homeschooling. I know some of you are new to this, and so there is law that applies to homeschoolers in Missouri that we do have to follow. But the lucky thing for us is that it's not super restrictive and it's fairly easy. So I don't want that to scare you that there's a law we have to follow. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what are you supposed to do if your child was in a public or private school last year and you are homeschooling this year? Now, you're not doing the school's online program or virtual learning or some hybrid with your public school or your private school. You are the homeschool. You are picking your own curriculum. You're doing your own thing. You're not doing their thing at all. You have to formally withdraw them from school. So Missouri law does require you to submit a letter to your school letting them know that you are withdrawing your child. In the resources, I gave you a link to FHE, which is Families for Home Education. They're a Missouri organization. On their website, they do have a sample letter of withdrawal that you can use. That's all you have to do. If your school district asks for other documentation, you don't have to give them anything else. It should be just that letter of withdrawal. And then the other organization that I want to mention real quick is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, or HSLDA. HSLDA is a friend to homeschoolers. They've been around for decades. They offer a valuable, huge amount of resources for homeschoolers. They are experts on the law. So they are nationwide. So if you're not in Missouri and you're asking, well, what is the law in my state? HSLDA, you can look up by state. what the laws are for your state. So I'm just going to speak specifically about Missouri because that's where I'm at and that's what I'm familiar with. But the confusing thing is every state has different laws. So if you don't live in Missouri, you are going to have to look up what is the law for your state. And you can find that at HSLDA. They are a legal firm, so any kind of litigation that would come against you as a homeschooler, they can help you with. If you become a member, which is not very expensive, I think it's $100 a year or something, they will defend you for free in court if there's ever any court case against you. If somebody tries to say that you're not educating your kids or the school district wants to charge you with something or whatever, they will defend you in court. But they also are great at helping you navigate the school system, the school district. So if your school district is saying, I need other things from you in Missouri, and you've already sent your withdrawal letter, and they're asking you for other documents, HSLDA is your friend, and I would contact them and ask, what do I actually have to do, and what should I say to my school district? Okay. If you have a kindergartner and you've never been enrolled in the public school system, you do not have to do anything, okay? You don't have to let your school district know that you're homeschooling. You don't have to send any kind of letter. It's better to just not say anything to anyone. You don't have to, according to the law, to homeschool in Missouri. And so it's better to just not. So just start homeschooling your child if they've never been enrolled in a public school. Okay, hours. You have to keep track of your instructional hours. I know that sounds scary, but it's not. We talked about having a plan book. Plan books are extremely helpful. You should have one. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. I've given you a link to the one that I use, which I really like just because it allows me to schedule for up to 4 kids on one 2-page spread, which is great because I don't want to have to carry 4 different plan books for all my homeschool kids. The one that I use also includes things like counting their report cards. There's a report card form that I can use if I want to. It has a thing at the beginning that lists, I can list out all of their curriculum so that I know what I'm using with them, so that I have a record of what I used curriculum-wise. I can list their strengths and weaknesses. Some of the things that I've asked you guys to do, the planner that I use that I linked you to has that included in it, which is just really nice to have a record of it all in one place. So in addition to that, on a planner is where you're going to mark your hours. So you can do it whatever way works best for you, but you do need to write out your lesson plans, which can be really simple. It doesn't need to be anything complicated. It can be do page 5 in this workbook. That's your lesson plan for that class. It doesn't need to be, like a page-long lesson plan where you write out everything you're going to say to your child. It can be very simple, but then you can also mark your hours on your lesson plan book that way as well. Okay, so how many hours do you have to have in Missouri? In Missouri, you have to have 1,000 instructional hours. Now, that sounds like a lot. It's not. You have 12 months to complete that requirement. So the school year begins, according to the law, June 1st. Is that right? Or July 1st? Did I write it down there? Yeah, July 1st. So July 1st of this year is the official beginning of this school year, and then it goes until June 30th of next year. So you have all that time to meet your 1,000 hours. If you're using a curriculum plan of some sort, if you're using a purchased curriculum and you go through the whole thing, you'll meet your 1,000 hours. It's not difficult. I know it sounds scary. It's a big number. It's not. I actually did some simple math and broke it down. There are 52 weeks in a year. Most curriculums work on a 32 to 36 week schedule. And so if you round that up, accounting for breaks and things taking longer, let's just say you've got 40 weeks, okay? If you spend 40 weeks out of the school year doing school, you have to spend 5 hours a day on average doing your lessons to be able to meet that requirement, which is totally easy to do. Even for a kindergartner, they're not going to spend 5 hours sitting at a desk doing worksheets because they're a kindergartner and they're 5. But school hours are more than what is in a workbook. So let's talk about what subjects are required. Okay, so 600 of your hours have to be the core subjects. So for Missouri, these are reading, math, language arts, social studies, and science. So 600 hours in those core subjects. And then the other 400 can pretty much be any subject that you want your kids to do. You want to teach them Spanish? Okay, that's a non-core subject. That's part of your 400 hours. PE, that goes in the 400-hour category. They're in a sport, that's PE, that counts towards your 400 hours. So when you realize that the core subjects have to make up only 600 of the hours, hopefully that makes it really easy to see that this is not difficult to exceed the 1,000-hour requirement. Most homeschoolers easily exceed that requirement every year. I know I do. So yeah. The other thing is you don't have to submit that anywhere. You have to keep a record of it, but you don't have to turn it in to anyone. Okay, so Missouri does not require you to turn in records to your school district or to the state Department of Education or your state senator or anywhere. You just keep them for yourself. So you don't have to turn in test results, your logs, what curriculum you used, attendance records, none of that. You don't have to turn it in to anyone, but you do need to keep it because if there is an issue where somebody accuses you of not homeschooling, you have to have a record that you did. So keep it, but you don't have to turn it in to anyone. You also don't have to get it approved by anyone. So you have the freedom to choose whatever curriculum you think will work best for your child, and there are tons of options. And like I said earlier, I'm not going to get into that tonight. If you have questions about something, feel free to message me, and I will do my best to kind of help you kind of wade through the maze of curriculum. There's so much to choose from, and I've used a lot of different stuff over the years. So I might be able to help you if you're considering a couple things and you're not sure. Reach out to me and send me a message, but you don't have to get it approved by anyone. So really you have the freedom to choose what is best for your family. Okay. Yeah, so a lot of things can be counted as school. If you think about like field trips, that can be counted as school, especially if it's something like the zoo or the art museum or the history museum. That's a school, that's a learning experience. Sometimes we might go on a family hike. I count that as PE. That's PE time. We're out, we're exercising. That would be a PE time on my homeschooling records. Going to the library, that can count as well. In public school, they have a library time that they go, they learn library skills, they learn how to use the computer, how to find books. When you go to the library and you're helping your kids find the books that they want, you're teaching library skills, so that counts. Okay, let's move on. We're almost done, guys. If you have any questions, we might have some time. So go ahead and, yeah, you have one more page in your packet of notes. So we're almost done. So if you have questions for me, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Okay. There are no minimum days of attendance in Missouri, so you don't have to count, attendance for your kids. You don't have to mark it off. I think the planner that I mentioned that I use, there is a place for that because some states do require it. I don't use it in my planner because it's not required in Missouri and it's cumbersome and I have 4 kids to tally up for. So you don't have to count attendance or count days or anything like that. It's just the hours. So, and for more specifics on that, again, go to HSLVA's website or the FHE website that is in the back in your resource page if you want to read the law specifically how it's written. I've kind of just condensed it for you and broken it down to make it easy, but you probably should go read it in its entirety just so that you're familiar with it. Okay, last page of notes. You are not allowed to double dip on hours. So what does that mean? Double dipping is if you were, let's say I wanted to read my kids a book about sharks. We're learning about sharks in science. And then in the lesson log, I go and I mark that as a time for science and a time for reading. I can't do that. So you have to choose. It can be one or the other. So I gave an example of a family hike that I counted as a PE time on my hours. So normally I would count that as PE, but there was a time when we were studying botany one year in science, and our family hike involved looking for morel mushrooms. It was morel season. And so we had been studying about botany and plants, and I gave my kids a quick lesson on how to find morels and what they look like. And our hike consisted of looking for morels. So in that instance, I counted the hike as science. I did not count it as PE and science. I only counted it as science because it was an extension of what we were learning in science. So you just have to choose where it fits best and put it there. You can't put it in two spots. Compulsory school age in Missouri. Okay, compulsory school age in Missouri is, let me make sure I get this right. I wrote it down. Okay. I hope this is helpful, and I'm not going too fast for you guys. I know there's a lot. Compulsory school age in Missouri is from age 7 to 16. So what that means is if your child will not turn 7 this school year, you do not have to keep track of hours. I recommend that you keep track of your lessons, and if you want to keep track of hours, you can. When my oldest was 6, I did keep track of hours that school year. And the reason was because I wanted to get in the habit of doing it. I knew I didn't have to do it that year, but I wanted to make it a practice and make sure that I was doing it correctly. So even if your child is not going to turn 7 this school year and you still want to keep track of hours, go ahead and do it. It's great practice, especially if you want to continue homeschooling in the future. But just know that you don't have to. If your child is older than 16, you also don't have to keep track of their hours anymore. Now that's high school, so things get a little bit different as far as how you keep track of their records for high school, which I'm not really going to get into. But after they're 16, you no longer have to count hours. You do have to keep track of classes and credits and those kinds of things. That's a good question, Katie. I'll get to that in just a minute. I know there's a lot on the websites. Okay. So if this is your first year of homeschooling, what do you need to keep? Basically everything. I would keep everything. If it's your first year and you're just doing this because you were forced into it and you're probably going to go back to the public school next year, keep everything. Keep your lesson logs. Keep your curriculum. Keep what your kids did. All of their work. You should keep it as a record. I also would write down field trips that you took and where you went and the date that you went there. Something fun that I've had my kids do over the years is after a field trip, especially if it's a place where we've gone and we've met with somebody at that place, I'll have them send a letter thanking that person for allowing us to come or something to that extent, just so that they get practice with writing a letter of thanks. So you can definitely do that after a field trip and maybe keep a copy of it. Yeah, keep everything from this school year. High schoolers need to keep everything for all 4 years. So all their work, all their completed work needs to be kept, all the records of testing, standardized testing that they've done, a record of what curriculum that they've used. They need to keep all of it for all 4 years. Okay. So that is all my notes. That was a lot. Yeah, so Katie says there is so much on these websites. I know there is. And there's no rush to go through it. So take your time and seek out the information that you need, and try not to get bogged down by things that don't apply to you. So Katie's question is, do you have any supplies or general extra things that you recommend having in your schoolroom for elementary age kids? Okay. I have a few things that I keep in my schoolroom for my elementary kids. I have these guys. Pattern blocks are really helpful to keep around. And so I might pull these out and just have my 4-year-old build me something. I'll say, build me a picture. And so this is great to have. I really like this one too. This is a really fun one for the younger kids. It's missing like all the pieces. Well, not all of them. But. So you've got these little nesting things. The orange one is missing the mama bird. So each one has a mama bird and then some baby birds. And so, aren't they cute? Oh, they're so cute. So I like these. These are fun. But you know, you can do a lot with these kinds of things. You've got colors, you've got counting, you've got sorting by size. So that's something that I keep in my schoolroom for my kids. Lacing cards. This one, this set actually, I think this is a Melissa and Doug set, and it actually has alphabet on the back. So they've got a animal on the front, and then there's an animal or the name on the back with a letter. These are fun to have, especially my boys like these. These are these little bugs, kind of the same idea as the bird nests. So there's little bugs, they're all different colors. And so they can do sorting with these and counting. It came with a dice, which has gotten lost. Typical. Another thing that I really like and is good to have if you can find it. This is going to be big, so I'm not going to open the whole thing. But this guy, you guys can see it. This is a map of the world. Every schoolroom should have a map. This one is a shower curtain. So if you can find a map shower curtain, this is an amazing thing to have. My 4-year-old loves this. You can use dry erase markers on it. Sometimes if we're having a prayer time and we are praying for like a country or a missionary or something, my kids, we can pull this out and I can show them this is where that country is, and then we can lay our hands on it and pray for that country or that missionary. And it's really fun for them to have a big map that they can use in that way. Yeah, so those are the things that I have just close at hand. I also keep some just alphabet blocks, just wooden blocks in my schoolroom. What else do I have in here? Coloring books for my younger kids. And yeah, books. I keep like, let me find it. So I have a shelf of books in my schoolroom. So this is some of my, I just got some new Usborne books or Usborne books, which I love. This one is super cute. So on my bookshelf, I'll keep chapter books for my bigger kids, but then also some books for my younger kids that they can pull out and read if they want. So yeah, I think that's about it. Because anybody, like one last question, I can take one last question and then we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. The main thing I want to leave with you guys is this. God gave your children to you because he knew that you were uniquely equipped to teach and train them. And in Proverbs, we're told to train up a child in the way that they should go, and that when they are old, they will not depart from it. You don't need any other qualifications. So I don't want you to get discouraged or think, I can't do this, I'm not qualified. Well, God says that you are. So God gave you your children, and he said, just by giving them to you, you are qualified. So if God says you're qualified to teach and train your children, you don't need anybody else's qualification. So I hope that encourages you guys. I want to honor your time. I know we got started late, but thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. And this video will be posted at my website. So if you missed something and you want to go back and watch it again, it will be there. If you have a question for me, send me a message, and I would love to just be an encouragement to you. I know that this can be a hard journey at times, but we're all in this together. So let's be a community and support one another. So have a great night, guys, and happy homeschooling.